he used to play on Broadway. The guy's a stud. And so did his wife. She used to play, they both played on Broadway and play at many of the different musicals that are here in Salt Lake. But we knew each other. Actually, somehow, we always were asked the question, how did we get to know each other? And it was juniors in junior choir.
And I'm actually going to share one thing about this, is don't let him tell you otherwise. He is an amazing singer. And he sings...
Hey, I went to Garth Brooks. Didn't people hear me? Jeremy heard me at Garth Brooks.
How we got to know each other very well is...
You're... Mike, turn off his mic. I'm telling the story here.
I'll tell the accurate one after.
So we meet in concert choir, this junior choir. So what would happen is, it wasn't the first year that he did this, but the second year, luckily I made it into officially as a senior concert choir. And so I would sing, and I was pretty good at following the people around me. But if they sang off key, I sang off key. So what would happen is they'd be singing along, the choir director would be going, doing blah, 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 and all of a sudden there'd be this like totally screwed up section of baritones in this, or tenors in this one section. And so then all of a sudden Mr. Miller, who has passed away since, he would start shrinking down to, you know, a group of 10 people, a group of 5 people. Then he'd get down to like a group of 3, and then he'd be like, okay, sing it, and Rob would sing it perfectly on pitch. Then my brother was next to me, he'd sing to it, sing it perfectly on pitch. And then I was there, and I totally screwed it up, and then Mr. Miller said this, just mouth the words, don't sing. So this guy's harassed me since I was a junior. So anything you think that I do that you say, man, that was mean, you have no idea what he's put me through. So, you know, so it goes on. So I want Rob to know that there's a number of things in life that I would like him to know I give credit to him for. And it's not often that you get the chance to thank people and acknowledge them for those moments. You know, if I was to take a step back and look at the impact that Rob Oakey has had in my life, it is profound. The very reason for me, which was important, that I went on an LDS mission, is because this guy stood by my side. For me, that was important. Then I came home, and what I thought was my best friend married my girlfriend, but man, Garth Brooks said it all right when he said, thank God for unanswered prayers. Oh my gosh, you know, Facebook just lets you see a little glimpse of what you could not have. And this is being recorded twice. It's awesome. Do not post that. But if you don't know, Jennifer is Rob's cousin, and although we knew each other at Skyline High School, the reason I got reacquainted and associating with Jen is again because of Rob. So I look at, you know, from my standpoint of things that center me spiritually, he's been a rock. For the fact of my marriage, he's been a rock. He's like a second father to my kids. Sorry about that. It's supposed to be John. John's not here, so my emotions are like right at the tipping point because today was a pretty brutal morning, just to say the least. But with that, as I've moved on, you know, we look at this organization and we look at the impact that it has had and the dynamics of what it's had. If you take the last 6 years, or 6.5, close to 6.5, there's been over 12,000 different properties that have sold in this organization. But that's not counting all of the properties that have been listed, which would be well in excess of over 15,000. And then if you took the 15,000 listings that have been listed, the 10,000 sales or 12,000 sales or more that have occurred, and then you take the fact that of all the failed sales that have occurred, we're talking nearly 20,000 plus sales that have occurred or not occurred that his watchful eye has been over. Much of what we have and who we are and what we're about is the protection of this guy. And knowing that, sometimes I always joke about these are the guy that you love or you hate, because if you're on the hate side, it's because you probably screwed something up pretty good. But at the same time, I look at all the times that we could have been in court, and we could have been with, although we get a slew of attorneys it seems all the time, but no offense, Sam or Elliot back there. But I look at all the impact. I like the comment that Sam said to me just a week or two ago, and he said, you know, of all the people I know in the industry, of all the different organizations, he said Rob Oakey is the best at what he does. In fact, most people are asking him the question, what law school did you go to? With that, I look at the fact of all of the many thousands of dollars that have been saved in this organization because of his association with it, and the lives that are better because of it. And so with that, gather myself here, Rob was going to be a little surprised because he was pretty mad at me driving down to a hospital today, but I want to present Mr. Rob Oakey with a Rolex. Wow. The story is the person who was getting this and setting this up said that this didn't exist anymore and there wouldn't be any for 2 more months, and he was quite upset, to say the least. Because we had talked about this and I kept putting it off over and over again. And was very, very non-responsive when he said that he would love to see something like that happen if it was possible. So, all right. All right.
Wow. Okay.
Speech. Just kidding. You don't have to.
Well,
You don't have to. I'm just kidding.
I am going to at least, I didn't know this, but this is also my beautiful son and my wife. So, it's not, it's actually been quiet, so you guys may not have known it.
Because he knew what was happening.
He knew, I guess, what's going on, so.
Is Ron here? I don't know if he was or wasn't, but he may not be.
Okay, well, I'm going to shut up and sit down.
Okay. All right. Congratulations. Thank you for everything. The organization and everybody here owes you a great deal. I figure a Rolex is a lot cheaper than a big lawsuit, isn't it, Sam? That's all I'm saying. All right. All right, with that. The good news is I'm not speaking next. Next, we've got, as you know, we've got an extraordinary team of brokers and leaders and managers within this organization. I like to define it and call it the leadership team. And with that, we are going to be awesomely delighted to hear from Russ Orchard. You ready, Russ? Yeah, Russ! So Russ is coming up. And after that, we will hear from Mr. Matt Barton. And then you will get to hear from me. So we're excited. So let the summit in so many words begin. But Russ, I couldn't tell you how excited we are that you're here. He's probably not going to tell you, but he's 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I'm actually 12 feet tall, so that's why there's... But he is amazing, awesome, and it's been a relationship that we have fostered and developed over the last 2 or 3 years. And if you don't know who Russ is, you should, and you're going to get to know him even more. He's been in the business well over 20 years. He's been has led out different types of instruction, education, from new licensees to experienced for years and years with Coldwell Banker. He's been with us now. How long are we going? 4 months, and is doing an extraordinary job and has some extraordinary skills, mad skills, and we want you guys to see it. And so, Mr. Russ Orchard, welcome to the company. We're excited you're here. Let's get
Well, I was just sitting over there and I told Matt, I'm glad you're going first. After that, but I just was wondering where my Rolex is. I was expecting that to come out there. Actually, I am excited to be here and to get to speak with you for a little bit today. Last night, I was thinking, okay, I got to come up with something funny to start with. And I had this great idea of what I was going to do. And so last night I texted John Syatt and I said, "Are you okay if we have a little bit of laughter at your expense tomorrow?" He wrote back and said, "Absolutely. But after hearing what George said, I'm going to cut that out of the program. Doesn't feel like probably the right thing to make fun of him on a day like this." So, but here's where I wanted to start is ultimately, as George said, I'm fairly new to Century 21 Everest, and a lot of you don't even know who I am. There's probably a lot of you that are like, "Who is this guy?" And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you this morning a little bit about commitment. And I figured probably the best way to talk about commitment with you and introduce myself a little bit would be to tell you a little bit about my story. And so similar to Rob bringing up that his wife was here, I have my wife, Jenny, here. And next month, on December 21st, will be our 25-year anniversary. So. I know, I'm surprised. I think there's only 2 people in this world that call me Russell. So my given name is Russell, but my mom and her. And I think that's the only reason that she probably put up with me is those 2 women, is my mom and my wife. So, but Jenny and I have been married 25 years. After we had gotten married, our first son didn't come until we had been married for about 5 years. And he was born in 1995. Well, right before he was born, I remember I went to Jenny and I said, "I think I want to change careers and I want to go into real estate." And she was very supportive and said, "Okay, go for it." And so I started real estate right after we had our first son, who is now 20, and he's on a mission in Mexico City right now, serving a mission. But so I first started in real estate back in 1996, the first part of 1996. And when I started with Coldwell Banker at that time, I went into my broker and I said, "All right, what should I do?" And he said, "Go do this." So he said, "Go make a list of all the people in your SOI." So I did. He said, "Now do a mailing to them." So I did. Then he said, "Okay, now," I just kept going back. "Tell me what to do next. Tell me what to do next." And he finally just, I think, got so tired of me coming in that he finally said, "You know what you need to do, Russ? You need to go knock on doors for 2 hours every single day, and then after 2 years of doing that, you'll never have to do it again." And I said, "Got it." I left and went and started knocking doors, and I quit going and asking him questions. Well, along the way with that, what happened is I had made a commitment to myself that I would talk to 50 people a day, so that I would have 50 contacts every single day. Well, Melody Sheldon, who's here, was working at the office. She was our receptionist at the time, and she will vouch for the story that I'm going to tell you because she was there and lived it with me. But so a lady by the name of Shirley Taioli'i, some of you may remember her, but she and I started about the same time. And Shirley and I decided, you know what, let's meet every morning at 9 o'clock. We'll role play until 9:30, quarter to 10. Then at 10 o'clock, we'll be out door knocking. So we would go door knock for our 2 hours or until we got 25 contacts. Then after that, we would come back to the office. Well, we'd go to lunch, then we'd come back and meet at the office again at 2. We would then get on the phone and call until we got 25 more contacts. So every day we were getting our 50 contacts. Well, what happened is I got talking to a friend / mentor of mine, and in the process of that, I was talking to him and he said, "Well, why are you making 50 contacts?" And I said, "Well, there's a formula that says if you want to make X amount of dollars, you got to do this many contacts, which would lead to so many appointments and so many listings." And he said, "Okay, is it working?" And I said, "Well, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it." And he said, "Well, let me ask you a question. What if I could help you to double your income by doing less contacts? Who's in for that?" Yeah, I was like, "Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Whatever it is, you tell me." And he said, "Look, here's what I would recommend you do. Quit worrying about the number of contacts you're making and just make as many contacts as it takes to get an appointment." And then at that point, he shared with me a quote. And I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to pull it up here just in case I blow it, but I'm going to try to quote it to you. This quote is from a guy by the name of W.H. Murray. And it's interesting, the little bit of the coincidence that here I am now at Century 21 Everest when about 18 years ago I learned this quote. This quote is from W.H. Murray. Anybody know who W.H. Murray is? That's what I expected. W.H. Murray, actually, and the reason you don't know who he is, he was actually part of the Everest reconnaissance mission that took place in 1951. He failed to acclimatize to the altitude, so he was not included in the 1953 expedition. So because of not being able to acclimatize. But here's what he said about his experience of trying to do it back in 1951. He said, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth. And this is what I want you to get today from my message. There's one elementary truth. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. And this is where I just got lost here. Hang on. A whole stream of events issue from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. And then he says, I've learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. See, the moment one definitely commits oneself. So what this friend of mine said is, if you will commit to getting one new appointment every single day that you work, he said, what I'll tell you is you'll prospect half as much, but you'll double your income. I said, great, I'll do it. Well, this friend of mine could tell that I really probably wasn't understanding what commitment means. And so he said, no, I want to just be clear and make sure you understand. This means you don't go home until you get an appointment. And I said, yeah, I get it. And he said, no, I don't think you do. I want you to go home and tell your wife, so go home and tell Jenny that I'm not coming home tomorrow until I get an appointment. And I was like, oh, you mean like I really have to commit to doing this? And he said, yeah. So I remember I went home and I said to my wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow till I get an appointment. And I remember her saying, well, then you better get after it and don't mess around and get your appointment. So here's where things changed for me. Is what had happened is prior to that, I would show up to the office, as I told you, at about 9 o'clock. We would do our role play and then we'd go out door knocking. Well, if I told you, tomorrow you can't go home until you get an appointment, what time would you show up to the office tomorrow? Bright and early, right? You'd show up at 7:30 for Morning Ascent. There's a plug for Morning Ascent. So yeah, you show up at 7:30. So I showed up to the office at 7:30. I pulled up all the expireds, I pulled up all the for sale by owners because I knew I was not going home until I got an appointment. Well, so I jumped on the phone, I started calling, and I had my appointment before 10 o'clock. Typically, Shirley and I would leave to go out door knocking. I wouldn't have even started prospecting until 10 o'clock. But see, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. See, all sorts of things occur to help one that never otherwise would have occurred. So I started doing that, and as I was doing that, and I would show up at the office at 7:30 in the morning, well, one day, I'm at the office, I still remember exactly where I was at. The office was on 7800 South and Redwood Road. I was back in the work area at that office. Phone rings. I pick up the phone, answer it, and it's a lady, and she says, I'm with a bank in Florida. We've got 2 properties that we need to sell. Can you help me with that? I said, absolutely. So it turns out this ended up being a relationship that was a long-term relationship that I ended up doing a lot of business with that bank because of being there. Now, this is where for that quote, it came to life to me. See, once you definitely commit, then all sorts of things occur to help one that never otherwise would have occurred. And so my question for you is, what are you committed to? How committed to the business are you? How committed to your relationships? And how committed are you to your finances or to your business and your health? What do you need to change? What things do you need to commit to for yourself to improve in those 3 areas that we talk about? And if you will take a look at that and think for yourself, okay, what is it that I need to change? What is it that I need to commit to? And commit to doing it no matter what. See, commitment doesn't come into place if what you do is say, well, I'll try. A commitment is what I had to go home and say to my wife is, I'm not coming home tomorrow until I get an appointment. And let me tell you, if you've never done that, I would invite you to do that. Even if you only do it for a week. next week, for the next week, commit to, I'm not going home until I get 1 appointment. Or if you're already doing that, to getting 2 appointments. But it's amazing how you will change. The way that you talk to people changes. See, prior to that, I was going out just to get a contact. When I knocked on somebody's door and they opened it, in my mind, I was mentally making a tick mark. I was done. But as soon as I changed to, I can't go home till I get an appointment, my language changed a little bit. I started asking more questions. I followed up a little bit more with people to make sure that I could get that appointment. And so what I will promise you is if you'll take on that challenge and be willing to look at it and say what happens, then you'll have that same experience where you will see that providence moves too. All sorts of things will occur to help you that never otherwise would have occurred. And that's my message for you this morning, or this afternoon, I guess. So, thank you. I got it warmed up for you.
Amen. Just plant right in front of George here.
You won't.
I know. That's why I planted these. All right. Is this working?
You probably need to put on a tie. Amateur.
You know you're well loved. Well, Joe, I just have to say I appreciated your tribute this morning, or this afternoon, and I hope you weren't paying attention when you bumped into me out in the hallway, and if you did, keeping things quiet, because you might have heard me up here. I'm just coming off a cold and I was coughing, and before the meeting I stepped out the door. I told my wife, make sure you bring the bottle of NyQuil. And I brought the bottle of NyQuil and I went out in the hallway and just make sure I wouldn't have a coughing attack while I was talking. Well, actually, she did bring the Dayquil. I'm like, you didn't bring the NyQuil, it has twice the power. Anyway, thank you for not spilling the beans. And no, I'm not a closeted NyQuil drinker. I really appreciate being here today, especially being here for Rob's tribute. I actually sit next to Rob in the building, and I've done compliance when I had my own brokerage. I know what he goes through, and he's exceptional at his job, and I appreciate the work he does. In the same tone as Russ, I want to take just a minute. There's several of you who know me. There's probably a lot more who don't. Joined the company 16 months ago, George. We merged our company down in Orem. That's our Orem location now. And I am so grateful for that decision. We had options, right, George? And persuasion and integrity and loyalty and all these things are not just trite words. They really impacted our decision to come this direction. I'm grateful for making that decision and being here. I've been married, Russ, I'm going to beat you. I've been married 26 years. My wife's here. And we didn't wait so long to have our first child. Our first child was 9 months, 5 days after we got married. So we were into it right away. We now have 5 children. My wife is licensed and does an exceptional job. I have my oldest son is licensed and my daughter is licensed. And I hope the other 3 continue in that track and get licensed no matter what they pursue, because I really believe in the industry that we're in. I am passionate about it. I've been in the business for 14 years. I've served as an association president down in Utah County. I sit on the MLS Board of Directors. I've been on forums committees. I've professional standards. I don't do that because I don't have anything to do with my time. It's because I love what we're about and the positive contribution it makes to the society that we are building for our children. That's one of my main drivers. 2.5 years ago, not quite 2.5 years ago, I was laying in a hospital bed down in Utah County with a broken back at T10 and T12. I had 6 snapped ribs between my spine and my shoulder blade, had punctured lung, broken wrist, broken shoulder, other sundry injuries. And it's interesting how life's little events are highly instructive if you'll let them be. And I remember laying in that bed, and if anybody's had a broken back, it's not a pleasant thing, with a punctured lung, no less. So everything was kind of fun. And I remember laying in bed and in between visitors, having a few moments to sit there and contemplate some of the things I took for granted, like moving and being able to breathe deeply, and simple things like the ability to work, to do, to go, and to achieve. Those aren't trite observations. When you're in a situation like that, they become very real and poignant. And yet we tend to fall back into habit. We tend to fall into ingratitude and taking things for granted. And I remember laying there thinking, wow, I really am grateful for those simple things in life. And so when I say that I'm grateful to be here today in front of you and to rub shoulders with so many great people, I hope you understand those are sincere words. Each of us have mountains to climb. That's what I've decided to talk about today, or share a message with you. A lot of these can fall into different categories: physical, emotional, spiritual, relationship, financial. There's no shortage of mountains to climb, and each one of us has our own custom mountain range, not single mountain. I recently read an article by a gentleman by the name of Scott Cutler. Probably doesn't ring a bell with most of you. Scott Cutler was a graduate in the mid-90s of one of our local universities. I won't say anything that was from BYU, but Scott had quite a storied career and a workaholic, I might mention. Eventually, through different experiences in his career, became the head of global listings for the New York Stock Exchange, a very prestigious and lucrative position. And this article that I read talked about the different challenges he's had in life, and certainly some pointers, and basically drawing some similarities between his love of mountain climbing, how appropriate for us at Everest, and the parallels that has had in his career. And I'm not going to go into all of those, but I wanted to hit on a couple of points. In the article, he makes a very simple, might seem obvious observation, and that is, no mountain is climbed in a straight line. There's always weaving, twists, turns. We'd like to make it straight, but that's usually not the case. Very simple statement. What are we to learn from it? Climbing, physically or figuratively, is not an easy task. It's not the path of least resistance. Many times, another takeaway from this is many times you find that there are people that have already ascended to a certain status or a peak. And it's in our interest to make sure that we seek out those people so that we don't have to relearn all the lessons that they've gone through. How many of you were able to go to the company showing of the movie Everest? Yeah. This demonstrates the point. Those people that kind of know the lay of the land, who have had that experience, are known as what? Sherpas. Sherpas. You know what that word means? I mean, literally. It means people of the East. The people of Nepal, the people that have lived in these mountains, who have experienced them, who know the fine details of it. They actually understand the environment needed to be created for success. Put a placeholder there for a minute. And I apologize, but sometimes personal stories are the ones that resonate the most with us, and so if you'll humor me for a minute, I want to share a personal story. So prior to being in the hospital the year before, I had got involved in triathlons. Thank you for not laughing. I mean, I understand not exactly what you'd consider an athlete's body. I'd had 5 ACL replacements in my knees, not exactly an endurance sport kind of guy or structure here. But the one thing that I inherited from my family was stubbornness, and so I decided that I was going to get into the triathlons, and I did some of the shorter ones, and eventually I got this crazy idea as I was closing in on 48, right, Nancy, that I'm going to do the full thing. I'm going to do an Ironman. Does anybody know the distances on an Ironman? Jason?
2.5 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and 26.2
mile run.
Right, in case you didn't hear that, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full marathon, 26.2 miles. And that,
Spread over how many days?
yeah. You have 17 hours to make it, otherwise you're disqualified. So I went through the preparation. I spent a whole year. I was at 220 pounds. I dropped down to 181 pounds over that course of the year. Was taking shots in my knees, cortisone shots, Synvisc shots, just to make sure I could continue to run. The day of the event came, my family was there to support me. I'd had a great support team all along, a bunch of friends that were triathletes and keeping my mindset and everything right. And the day came, and what an event. In the world of Ironman, St. George Ironman is the hardest. There's a reason why they changed it in 2013 to a half iron, because it was a pretty challenging course. And so here I am sitting in the water at Sand Hollow Reservoir, all excited, and there's 1,800 of us in the water, ready to swim, and we start off and about 200 yards into the swim, this windstorm came in, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it was crazy. They ended up pulling out 400 of the swimmers out of the water. Their day was done. And you think that's okay, but the wind persisted all day long. And to make a very long day, trust me, a long day, a very short story for you, I had planned on a sub 12-hour Ironman. I'd gone and pre-raced the course, knew I could do it, the times were there, and anybody want to guess my time? 15 hours. Truly disappointing, right? It was initially until I looked back at what was accomplished. The hardest Ironman course on its hardest day ever, and I got it done. And I'm not an athlete. So what are some of the takeaways? This is the point I want you to remember. Not that story, but Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "That which we persist in doing becomes easy to do, not that the nature of the thing has changed, but that our power to do so has increased." When I look back on that event, when I think of the story of Everest, I want you to consider who your support team is. What is your Sherpa environment? Because getting there by yourself is almost an impossibility. In particular with our company, you have a fantastic broker team. Having been a broker for nearly 9 years, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to brokers, and you have a great broker team who is dedicated to your success. They work on your individual and group coaching and accountability, daily mindset meetings, morning ascents, sales meetings, base camps, summits like we're having right now. And I would add this one, which doesn't get mentioned, a supportive agent environment. I was really impressed, I think it was just a week ago, being at the Midvale sales meeting when they had a top producer get together, 3 individuals, Justin Udy and Brenda Lee and Jonah Gamboa. And I sat there in that meeting thinking, this is really unique. A lot of times when you go to different places in our industry, people, it's like playing poker. They want to hold their cards really tight, not share their success. And here were some very top, some of our most elite producers, open book, sharing their recipes for success on systems. So here we are. We're coming into November, December. Basically 30 working days left before we hit the end of the year when you subtract the vacations, the holidays that are coming, and the weekends. It's a perfect reset time, and I would challenge you with the following. How are you increasing your, how are you surrounding yourself with an appropriate Sherpa environment? I've been to our trainings, and I know there's quite a few people here. I don't see this many people at all of the things that are available, from morning ascents to base camps to sales meetings. What are you doing to ensure your success for 2016? There are people that are dedicated to that. All of those support things that I mentioned are pretty much for nothing unless you participate. My challenge for you today is, as we come into this time of year, to reassess, reevaluate, and maybe even reset your commitment, like Russ brought up, in regards to how you're going to participate. I'll leave you with one little fact, because George knows I cannot make a presentation without citing a stat or a fact. Everybody's aware of the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20 rule. Let me just tell you kind of how that applies to us as real estate agents. Right now there are over 12,000 subscribers to the WFR MLS. There's a few more non-realtor licensees, but that's the gist of what's in the state. Do you realize that 33%, the top 33% of the agents in the state account for 90% of the production? Make sure you're at least in that top third. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good stuff. All right, so you know it's an extraordinary group of individuals. We're going to take the next 25 hours and dissect that. It's an all-nighter right here. All right? Hey, so I got a ton of notes. I got so much swirling, if you would say, inside my head of great things that we could talk about and discuss. And I always take a step back and ask myself, and I hope that you're asking the same thing of yourself, and that is what is your job? Well, I'm asking myself the same question. What is my job? What is it that I'm responsible to do in regards to this organization or my association with you? And we could go to talk about a whole heck of a lot of other things, and we get really specific on the minutia, but the reality is this. My job, I believe deeply, is to make sure that you are inspired to take action. Second is that I am there to teach you skill sets, strategies, and dynamics to sell more real estate. And then the third is to make sure that I confront you when you're not. I'm really good at that. That's really where I shine, and that is that I confront you when you're not doing your job. Now, it's a lot more fun when it's like one-on-one and there's one person there and I'm behind a closed door and I get to ask lots of fun questions like, why am I more committed to what you want than you are? Help me understand that you want to earn this much money but you're not showing up. Help me understand how you expect to make this much money when you never make a contact.